Davos, Switzerland, where 2,500 elite globalists are meeting to discuss international trade and the fear of a global recession. And Whoopi Goldberg has said that if Donald Trump becomes president, she is going to leave the United States. Can I help you pack? I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance.
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance. Here's your host, Randall Terry.
Do you remember the name Eric Cantor? He was the majority leader for the Republicans. People thought he was going to become Speaker of the House, and he was defeated in a primary by a Tea Party candidate with almost no money. Where's Eric Cantor today? He's working for some international, globalist, elitist company that doesn't put America's interests first. Aren't you glad he lost? Let me read to you a couple of comments that Eric Cantor made. Cantor is in Switzerland at the Davos meeting. Here's what he said. Unfortunately, I do think that if there were to be a Trump administration, the casualty would likely be trade, said Eric Cantor, a former Republican House Majority Leader and now Vice Chairman of Moelis and Company. That's a very serious prospect for the world. Cantor said he doesn't think that Trump will make it through the primaries. A common theme among Davos attendees who nevertheless are still talking about him. Trump's positions, like a temporary ban on Muslims entering the country and the building of a wall on the Mexican border, are earning him opprobrium at the mountain resort. By the way, approbation or opprobrium, that's contempt, all right? Hatred. Now, I want you to just stop for a minute. There are 2,500 people from around the country, around the globe rather, meeting to discuss international monetary issues, trade, okay? Do you really think that they have America's best interest in mind? Trump says, we're going to put a temporary ban on Muslims for our security, and we're going to build a wall on the southern border to actually have sovereignty once again and stop losing jobs for American citizens to illegal aliens. Trump is clearly saying, let's make America great again. Cantor, on the other hand, is saying, we've got to deal with the world economy. Do you see the point of this? Trump is talking about protecting Americans. Cantor is talking about protecting the investments of an international elite that are insanely wealthy. There's a big difference. And interestingly, Donald Trump is a billionaire. What does he have to gain financially by being the president? I would say not much. He could stand to lose. If his kids are really running the company, maybe they'll do a great job. Maybe they don't have his business sense. I don't know. That's not the point. The point is, they use the word, the bad guys use the word, Eric Cantor uses the word, protectionism. Ooh, protectionism. You know what that sounds like to me? Anti-choice. Do you know what I'm talking about? The baby killers call me, call you, if you're truly pro-life, anti-choice, anti-woman. I'm not anti-woman. I'm not anti-choice. I want to see human life protected from murder, okay? So when they try and use the phrase anti-choice as a moniker of evil, well, you know what? I am against the choice of murdering a little baby and ripping its head off. And I own that without flinching, without apology. 3,000 babies were killed yesterday. 3,000 will be killed today. 3,000 will be killed tomorrow. Maybe not so much in Washington, D.C. because they're buried under a foot of snow. But anyway, maybe God will save some of the babies that were scheduled to die at Planned Parenthood just a few blocks from the White House. Back on point. So they call Trump a protectionist. Well, maybe that's not so bad. There's people mocking him, saying he wants to go back to prior to World War II. Maybe that's not so bad either. I mean, think about it. Prior to World War II, and in the 1940s and the 1950s after World War II, a husband could make a decent living for his family, and the wife didn't have to work. She could stay home, raise the children. They weren't running ragged with 2 jobs barely making it. We had a manufacturing heaven, virtually paradise here in America. I've got to take a break. I want to talk more about the economics of this. But the fact that this economic elite are worried about Donald Trump makes me like Trump even more. Because I don't like and I don't trust these people. You shouldn't either. How would you like your name or the name of somebody that you love to be listed as a producer of our upcoming series, What Would Mohammed Do? If you are in a position to give a $1,000 gift, we have to buy some computer gear and some 4K monitors that cost about $12,000. 1 computer and 2 monitors, $12,000, because they're broadcast quality. This is not a Hewlett-Packard laptop, okay? If you can be one of those 12 people who give $1,000 or more, we will list you as a producer in the series, What Would Mohammed Do? Or if you want to do it in memory of a loved one, we will do that as well. Please, go to the GoFundMe site you see, watch the pilot, and if you say, I want to be a part of that, give a $1,000 gift, and we will put you or the person you choose as a producer of this TV series. I thank you in advance. God bless you. The more that the international elite rail against Donald Trump, the more that the Republican establishment rail against Donald Trump, the more that people who want to buy their politicians spew contempt at Donald Trump, the more it makes people want to vote for him. Populists, protectionists. The word populism means that in your country, you are looking for leaders that will protect your country. So populism and protectionism, they're close in meaning. Who can fault someone for wanting to protect their own country? Reagan talked, he didn't use the phrase that Trump is using. Reagan talked about America being the city on the hill. He talked about making America great again. Donald Trump is saying that. We're in trouble, and we are going to make America great again. Now, so that there is no confusion, all right, I think that Ted Cruz would probably be a better president on issues that are critical to me. I could be wrong, but I think Ted Cruz would be. I think that a Trump-Cruz ticket would be awesome. But anyway, because that would put Cruz in position to become president. So the reason I said that is because some people say, why do you like Trump? Why are you banging the drum for Trump? Listen, this is a talk show that does analysis, and it looks at the world through a Judeo-Christian grid, and it looks at the world of politics based upon my multi-decade experience inside of political races, okay? And my long relationship with Republican leaders who have done everything they could to fight me. I'll tell you one quick story so you understand the depth of how much I despise the Republican establishment. I ran for the U.S. House of Representatives in 1998, okay? I had a chance to win. It was the 5th most expensive primary in the whole country, all right? I was a young man, raised a ton of money. And the Republican establishment, namely Governor George Pataki of New York, who just ran for president, Governor Christy Todd Whitman, she was from New Jersey, she became a part of the Bush cabinet, Governor Weld of Massachusetts, and I believe the 4th was Governor Pete Wilson, a Republican of California. Those 4 Republican governors all of them baby killers, raised a ton of money and poured it into my district in New York State as independent expenditures and broke my back. They sent out a mailing with me standing next to the burned out hull of the Oklahoma City bombing, the burned out building, the blown up building, insinuating that I was a bomber. They told one lie after another about me. They were brutal. And I lost the primary. They did not want me in office. Same thing happened in 2006 when I ran in Florida for the state Senate. I was running against Jim King, who was the man that spearheaded the death of Terry Schiavo in the legislature. Governor Jeb Bush, so-called pro-life, so-called, I want Terry Schiavo to live. Jeb Bush, in the wake of Terry Schiavo's death, endorsed Jim King and spoke ill of me in a huge press conference. That's what we're dealing with in the Republican establishment. And so part of why I'm focused on the Trump campaign, and have been for months now, is because I could see, and I can see, and I do see, what he is doing to the infrastructure of the treacherous Republican elite. Sarah Palin, in her endorsement for Trump, spoke almost as much ill of the Republican establishment as she did praise for Trump. And that's why so many people in America are just saying, yes, I want this guy in office because he's saying the things that I want said. He has the passion that I'm feeling. He has the anger that I'm feeling, and he's not in their pocket. And the very fact that Donald Trump is despised by the people who should love him, fellow billionaires, the very fact that they hate him so much and they're so afraid of him makes the common guy like Trump even more and say, I'm ready to stump for Trump. I didn't make that up. That was Sarah Palin's line. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas referred to John Locke twice in his dissent in the Obergefell decision. John Locke is referred to as the philosopher of American liberty. He was a genius, and he not only believed in natural law, but he believed in revealed law, the Word of God, the law of God. And he is one of the two most influential philosophers on the founders of this republic. We are offering you this book, and I'm going to give you my book as well, The Sword. The Sword, the subtitle is The Blessing of Righteous Government and the Overthrow of Tyrants. It looks at what is the legitimate purpose of government and when is it our right to overthrow government like they did with the Declaration of Independence. We will send you these two books if you simply pay for the shipping and handling, $8, and then give whatever else you want. And by the way, the $8 doesn't cover our cost, but if that's all you can afford, we'll send them to you for the $8. God bless you. Poise. Frenetic poise. Go ahead, put that definition up on the screen. Frenetic, frenzied, frantic, totally worked up. How can you have frenetic poise? We were talking off the air about Marco Rubio. And Billy Bob said, why don't you like Marco Rubio? And I said, he's too frenetic. So we looked up the word to make sure that I was saying it right. I like a lot of his policies, but there's something about him that is too, it's like a kid wearing his dad's shoes. There's something about it that doesn't fit. And it's interesting that I would say that because there are things that we should be frantic about. There are things we should be totally worked up about. I'll go a step further. If we're not frantic about some things and we're not totally worked up about some things, it may indicate that we are lukewarm. that we have lost our way. So I think that, well, for example, I think that Donald Trump, at some level, could be defined as poised frenetic or frenetically poised. It's almost like he has that edge of being worked up, but he keeps it in enough check, like an elderly father or grandfather. He keeps it in enough check so that it's credible. Ronald Reagan had more poise. He did. And Ronald Reagan was worked up about the threat of the Soviet Union. He was. And he called them an evil empire. And he walked out of Reykjavik. And he went to the wall and said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And his staff was saying, please don't say that. Don't be provocative. Don't stir things up. And he said, I intend to. That's my goal. There seemed to me to be more poise there. But it also seems to me, and please grasp this with me. I read to you from Isaiah 59 the other day. It said, the righteous, speaking of the righteous, it said, we grope along the wall like the blind. Among the vigorous, vigorous for evil, we are like the dead. So what Ronald Reagan said in 1980, given the tone and the temper of that day, was frenetic. People said, do you want this man to have the black or the red button or the black box, whatever they used to call the football, the nuclear football? Do you want Ronald Reagan to have the launch codes for nuclear weapons? Ah! That's what they were saying. So they're, in some ways, they're making the same type of accusation against Donald Trump. But in 1980, we were only 7 years away from Roe versus Wade. There was a strong chance of having a constitutional amendment to end child killing. In 1980, if you said we want to have homosexual marriage, you would have been laughed out of town. People would have looked at you and said, are you out of your mind? What kind of pervert are you? What kind of a sick person are you? So our moral antenna as a people was still more functional. Our communal conscience was still more functional. Our individual consciences were still more functional. In 1980, we barely had CNN. We didn't have 1,000 stations. There wasn't not pornography coming into homes and into computers. Computers were for big business. You didn't have home laptops where any human being, no matter what age, could find anything in a matter of seconds, no matter how reprobate or horrible or immoral it is. And so the conscience of the nation at that time was not so skewed and calloused. So Ronald Reagan really was poised, and people really did say he's totally worked up. He was frenetic, but it was much lower grade. So fast forward to today, Donald Trump still has a level of poise with him that I don't think Marco Rubio has. Both of them are frenetic, totally worked up, frantic, worried about what's going on. I am too. I just think that Rubio doesn't have the juice as a candidate to pull off the presidency. Maybe later, not now. Friend, this TV show represents a mission. It's to be a voice of resistance to the evil in the land, but also to inspire people like you to take a stand at any level that you might be able to equip you, to inspire you, to challenge you, to give you the rhetorical ammunition that you need. But we still have to pay bills. This program, as you know if you're a regular viewer, we don't spend a lot of time raising money. We don't spend a lot of time saying, oh, you need to buy this and we're gonna run. No, we're bringing you a message, but we still have bills that we need to pay. I'm asking you, if you have been blessed by this show, to please go to our website or send a check to the address you see on the screen, or call the phone number that you see on the screen and use your credit card, and to give $50 or $100 or $500 just to help us meet our normal expenses. And we'll keep bringing you this hard-hitting show. The love of the outsider. One of the things that's really fun about this particular election cycle is that people really are voting for someone. They're not just voting against someone. When Bob Dole ran against Clinton in '96, the crowds got smaller and smaller and smaller. I didn't vote for Dole. I said, no, I'm not. No. I want him to lose. I want him to go into political retirement. I believe I voted for Alan Keyes that year, if my memory is correct. So people are enthused about Ted Cruz. They are enthused about Donald Trump. They are enthused about Ben Carson. They're enthused about Marco Rubio. The people who are voting for Jeb Bush, that 3 or 5%, whatever they're not enthused for him. They just want business as usual. They want an establishment Republican. And they're not getting that with any one of the 4 top runners. Rubio's a little bit establishment. He makes me a little nervous on that front. So it's a fun time to watch this political season. And I say fun, it's a blood sport, and there's so much at stake. Let me give a quick lesson to some young men who might be watching this episode right now. If you have a walled city, a small walled city, and there are a handful of assassins, warriors that want to kill you, where would you rather have them? Inside of your walled city or outside of your walled city? Right, outside. An enemy outside of your gate makes you vigilant. You're looking for him on the horizon. There he is, fire! An enemy inside of your gate makes you dead because he can cut your throat in the night, or he can poison your food in the day because he's inside. Most, not all, but most of the Republican machinery, the elite, are the assassins, the enemy's warriors inside the gate, inside the wall. They're the Benedict Arnolds. They wear a uniform, but they're trying to sell us out. They're the Judases. They're at the Last Supper, but they're taking 30 pieces of silver to betray the Lord. Randall, that's pretty strong speech. I know it is. Look at what the Republicans did when they controlled both houses of Congress and the presidency under George Bush the Younger. They kept funding Planned Parenthood, didn't do anything to stop the shedding of innocent blood, and permitted the homosexual juggernaut to gain steam. Look at what the Republicans did in 2010 when they won back the House. Nothing. Look at what they've done since they won back the Senate. Nothing. You can't, policy-wise, you can't tell a difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. Yes, rhetoric-wise, for sure, rhetoric, blah, 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 flapping their jaw, you know, like a dog sticking its head out the window, and you see the cheeks puckering out. That's the Republicans. I'm pro-life. I'm pro-traditional marriage. But the Supreme Court has ruled, so therefore it's the law of the land. No! No, let me get frenetic for a minute. No! That's not what opposition looks like. That's not what resistance looks like. That's not what heroism looks like. These Republican elites are the enemy in the walled city, in the gate. And Donald Trump is helping expose them. And the sooner we get those enemies back outside of our wall, the sooner we'll be safe and we can get on with the business of reclaiming this country.